I want you to just picture the exact space you're sitting in right now. Like literally look around at the walls around you, the neighborhood outside.
The place you call home.
Right. The legal framework that says this place belongs to you, or, at least that you have a right to be there.
Yeah.
Now, imagine stripping all of that away with zero warning. I mean, you are just sitting in your living room, drinking tea, and suddenly a group of armed men you've never seen before just walks right through the front door.
And they aren't there to negotiate.
No, not at all. They don't just hand you an eviction notice. They hand you a document that says your title, your historical identity, and like the legal existence of your entire family lineage have just been formally deleted from the National Registry.
Wow. Yeah, it's an erasure.
Exactly. And then they point to the door and they tell you that you have exactly 3 hours to pack up your life.
3 hours.
3 hours to condense literally centuries of history into whatever you can carry in your arms before they just physically throw you onto the street.
It is the absolute collapse of a manufactured reality. I mean, we often talk about political exiles taking weeks or even months to liquidate assets, arrange safe passage.
Right, like packing up estates.
Exactly. But this was a localized, instantaneous displacement. An entire universe just extinguished in an afternoon.
Which brings us to today. Welcome back to part 4 of our massive 9-part deep dive into the life of Puyi, the last emperor of China.
And if you've been tracking this journey with us, you already know we are dealing with a life completely defined by whiplash.
Oh, massive whiplash. But our specific mission for today's deep dive is to track this incredibly dramatic, disorienting transition from 1924 to 1931.
Right, because this is the exact window where Puyi goes from being this highly protected, totally isolated monarch living in a heavily guarded palace to an exiled, desperate citizen.
Navigating a completely wild cosmopolitan underworld of, con artists, warlords, and spies.
We are dissecting the exact mechanics of how a human being is systematically stripped of their wealth, their dignity, and really their agency.
Yeah, and the historical accounts we're leaning on today, they paint this picture of a man wandering into a geopolitical minefield, like completely unarmed.
He steps right out of the 19th century bubble of the king court directly into the meat grinder of 1920s Chinese factional politics.
So to understand how he gets chewed up by that machine, we really have to start with that fateful day in the fall of 1924, when the bill finally came due for the Qing dynasty.
Because it didn't just happen in a vacuum.
Right. The trigger is this military coup by a warlord named Feng Yuxiang. And we should probably dig into the mechanics of this, because in the 1920s, warlords were basically passing control of Beijing back and forth like a hot potato.
Yeah, as a revolving door of military regimes.
So why does Feng specifically decide that kicking Puyi out is his, day one priority?
Well, it really comes down to the currency of political legitimacy. I mean, if you are a warlord in 1924 holding the capital with artillery and infantry, well, that only gets you so far.
Right, you need actual authority.
Exactly. You need the bureaucracy to function, and you need the populace to accept your rule. And Feng Yuxiang, he really understood the performative nature of power.
Performative politics.
Yes. For years, the Republic of China had allowed Puyi to remain in the back half of the Forbidden City under this treaty called the Articles of Favorable Treatment.
And the public kind of hated this, right?
They despised it.
Huh.
It was a massive financial drain on the new republic, and to a lot of people, it felt like this lingering infection of the old imperial system right in the heart of their modern country.
So for Feng, it's this incredibly easy political win. I mean, he looks at this deeply unpopular treaty and realizes that tearing it up is just the ultimate populist maneuver.
Precisely. By unilaterally tearing up the agreement, Feng signaled to the masses, and crucially to rival factions, that China was firmly an established republic.
Using Puyi as a political prop.
Yes, a very convenient political prop to solidify his own warlord rule.
Yeah.
So on November 5, he revises those articles. He strips Puyi of his imperial title and reduces him to a private citizen.
And then comes the 3-hour eviction notice.
Right.
I really want the listener to think of it like the ultimate corporate hostile takeover. I mean, the former CEO isn't just fired. The new management bursts in, hands him a cardboard box, and gives him 3 hours to pack up a building his family has owned for centuries.
The logistical nightmare alone is staggering. You have a sprawling complex filled with priceless antiquities, concubines, eunuchs, just thousands of staff.
But the psychological shock, that's what really gets me. What happens to a person's psyche when their living god status is literally revoked in an afternoon?
The cognitive dissonance must have been entirely paralyzing for him. You have to remember, Puyi had lived his entire life in a completely manufactured reality within those walls.
Where everyone bowed to him constant.
Exactly. His reality was completely insulated. So
Oh.
to have that divine right revoked by a guy with a gun in a single afternoon, you don't just lose your address, you lose the foundational logic of your universe.
Yeah, like gravity just stopped working.
He is forced to confront, really for the first time, that power doesn't come from the mandate of heaven, it comes from military force.
Right, so the emperor is suddenly homeless. And that brings up the obvious question. Where does a recently fired monarch go when the streets are filled with hostile soldiers?
Well, the initial move is just pure panic. He flees first to his biological father's house, Prince Qin's estate.
Which is just a normal house, essentially.
Right, it offers absolutely no diplomatic immunity and no military protection. Puyi is a massive political liability sitting there, basically a walking target for assassination or to be taken hostage.
So sitting there waiting for a warlord to change his mind is a terrible strategy.
A completely fatal strategy.
So they have to initiate this scramble for asylum like a legation shuffle, and he sneaks out, right?
Yeah, it's a stealth exit. He leaves with his British tutor, Reginald Johnston, and his chief servant, Big Lie. They slip out without even telling the rest of the household to avoid drawing the attention of Feng's patrols.
And Puyi actually wants to go to the British legation first, which makes sense. I mean, the British Empire is the premier global power at this point, and Johnston is British.
It does make logical sense, but this is where the personal ideological biases of his advisors start to actively shape Chinese history.
Yeah, Johnston steps in and steers him away from his own country's legation.
Yes, Johnston forcefully steers his student toward the Japanese legation instead.
And if you're wondering, like, why would a British citizen actively lobby against his own country's diplomatic interests, you really have to look at Johnston's personal worldview.
Right, he was a staunch monarchist.
Yeah, he actually looked down on the British system of constitutional monarchy. Like, he thought the parliament restricting the king's power was a bad thing.
Johnston deeply preferred the Japanese system. You know, in 1920s Japan, the emperor was still worshipped as a living god. It was an absolute focal point of national worship.
So Johnston is basically projecting his own philosophical fetishes onto Puyi's survival strategy.
Exactly. He genuinely believed the Japanese would treat a deposed monarch with the sacred reverence he felt Puyi deserved.
Whereas the British would just, I don't know, treat him like an awkward political refugee.
Right, and to be fair, the British diplomats in Beijing were already dragging their feet. They were deeply hesitant to antagonize the new warlord government.
But while Johnston is out there trying to negotiate these half-hearted terms with the British, another advisor steps into the vacuum. Zhang Jiaxu.
Yeah, Zhang Jiaxu capitalizes on Puyi's mounting terror. While Johnston is away, Zhang basically advises Puyi that waiting for British bureaucracy could literally get him killed.
So he says, we go to the Japanese right now.
And Puyi listens. By the time Johnston returns, Puyi has already taken refuge with the Japanese diplomat, Kenkichi Yoshizawa.
And the Japanese play this so perfectly. I mean, Yoshizawa greets Puyi with maximum deference. He treats him like he's still on the throne.
That validation is the hook. Japan recognized the immense geopolitical leverage of holding the last king-emperor.
But they can't just keep him in Beijing indefinitely, right? That's too provocative.
Exactly. It was straining their diplomatic relations in Beijing. They needed to move him somewhere where they had easier control, away from the capital spotlight.
Which introduces our next major player, an advisor named Lu Zongyu.
And Lu Zongyu suggests moving to Tianjin for, quote-unquote, safety.
But I want to pause here and just ask, is Puyi completely blind to this manipulation? Because he thinks he's taking a safe train ride, but he's essentially being escorted into a gilded cage, right?
He is entirely blind to it. And the tragedy of Lu Zongyu is that Lu is secretly a Japanese agent.
Wait, really? His own advisor?
Yes, he's a double agent. Puyi's inner circle was compromised from the very start. The move of Tianjin wasn't about Puyi's safety. It was because Japan wanted him isolated and managed without triggering a daily diplomatic crisis.
I really want to paint a vivid picture of this train ride for the listener because it happens on February 23, 1925, and it is so deeply unsettling.
It's a terrifying journey for him.
Yeah, Puyi is trying to travel incognito. He is terrified of being robbed or killed. He's wearing a simple Chinese gown and a skull cap.
A far cry from the imperial yellow.
Exactly. But at every single stop between Beijing and Tianjin, Japanese police and special agents in black suits just board the train.
Just slowly filling with space.
Right. You stop at a station, two guys in black suits get on and sit near you. Next station, 3 more guys.
Yeah.
Until his private car is half full of Japanese handlers.
He steps off that train in Tianjin, thinking he's found a safe cosmopolitan refuge.
But he's actually walking into this bazaar of false hopes and empty promises.
Yes. He moves into the Japanese concession in Tianjin, first to the Zhang Garden and then later to an estate called the Garden of Serenity.
Which is such an ironic name.
Truly, a British journalist at the time actually dubbed the estate a doggy paradise.
Because of the dogs?
Yes. Puyi and his empress, Wanrong, had all these incredibly spoiled dogs running around. But the journalist was making a point about the contrast. You have these pampered pets, while the courtiers are constantly feuding in this decaying court in exile.
It sounds like a chaotic reality TV show. You've got feuding advisors, spoiled dogs, and just a revolving door of grifters coming through the gates.
That is exactly what it was. And outside those gates, Tianjin was a booming cosmopolitan city. Puyi actually joins these white-only foreign clubs to project status.
But behind closed doors, he is desperately plotting a restoration.
Yes, he wants the dragon throne back. But his advisors are completely divided. You have Zheng Xiaoxu and Luo Zhenyu constantly pushing for foreign help, usually Japanese.
And on the other side,
You have conservative advisors like Chen Baochen, who vehemently oppose relying on foreign empires.
so Puyi just starts hedging his bets. He basically opens the doors to any warlord who might have an army to spare, which leads to this incredible meeting with Zhang Zuolin.
The old Marshal of Manchuria.
Yeah, and Zhang Zuolin is basically an illiterate former bandit who now rules a massive industrialized region.
Manchuria was huge. It had a massive economy, vast resources, and Zhang had a modern army. So he walks into Puyi's estate, and he immediately drops to the floor and performs a full kowtow.
Which strokes Puyi's ego perfectly.
Exactly. Zhang promises to use his army to restore the Qing dynasty. But, of course, he needs a massive financial donation to fund his troops.
I'll make you emperor, just pay my army this month. But Zhang also gives Puyi a very real, very blunt warning about the Japanese, right?
He does, and this is crucial, because Zhang's own rise was heavily backed by the Japanese. He knew how they operated. He explicitly warns Puyi against trusting his, quote, Japanese friends.
Wow. So the most powerful warlord in the country is flat out telling him the Japanese are a trap.
Yes, and Zhang actually proves he has the military muscle because he takes Beijing in 1927.
And that was a legitimate chance for Puyi to return.
It was, but Puyi missed it because he simply lacked the courage to leave the safety of the foreign concession in Tianjin.
Which is just wild. I mean, he tells a London paper in 1927 that he never wishes to be emperor again, but simultaneously, he's throwing money at warlords to buy his throne back.
His desperation made him an incredibly easy mark. He had a reputation for duplicity, playing different warlords against each other, but he completely lacked the political savvy to actually win at that game.
Yeah, he's a terrible day trader. He opens his doors to the dog meat general Zhang Zongcheng, a guy whose face was literally bloated and livid from opium addiction. Puyi pays him, gets nothing.
And then there's Grigory Semyonov.
Oh, Semyonov, this is the ultimate scam.
It really highlights the absurdity of Puyi's situation. Semyonov was a white Russian con man. He comes to Puyi spinning these incredibly tall tales.
Yeah, he claims he has vast backing from international syndicates, right?
Right. He tells Puyi he is going to simultaneously restore the Qing dynasty in China and the Romanov dynasty in Russia using these massive Cossack hosts.
It's literally the 1920s version of a Nigerian prince email. I have millions in the bank to give you your throne back, but first I just need a quick loan of 5,000 British pounds.
And Puyi pays it. He hands over 5,000 pounds. And of course, Semyonov just vanishes with the money.
It's just staggering. So Puyi is hemorrhaging money to con men. He's playing this petty court politics. And then a devastating historical insult occurs that permanently severs his emotional ties to the Chinese Republic.
Yes, the grave robbery of 1928.
This is a huge turning point.
It really is. During the Northern Expedition, which was the campaign by the Kuomintang, the KMT, to reunify China, a warlord named Sun Dayaning sacks the Eastern Qing tombs located just outside Beijing.
And they don't just steal some gold, they literally use explosives to blow open the vaults.
Yes, and the most horrifying part for Puyi was the desecration of the corpse of Empress Dowager Cixi.
The woman who put him on the throne.
Exactly. Sun Dayaning's troops hacked open her coffin, dragged her body out, and stripped it to steal the jewels sewn into her burial clothes.
I want to pause and just connect the dots here for the listener. It's one thing to lose your house, your title, your money. But it's another thing entirely to have your ancestors literally dug up and thrown on the floor.
In Chinese culture, The profound cultural and personal weight of tomb desecration cannot be overstated. Filial piety is everything.
So this wasn't just a robbery.
No, it was the ultimate erasure of his family's dignity. It broadcasted to the world that Puyi was completely powerless to protect even the sacred resting places of his forebears.
And he holds the KMT, specifically Chiang Kai-shek, personally responsible for this, right?
It does. And we have to impartially frame this because Puyi's hatred was fueled by massive rumors. We aren't saying these rumors were factual, but they were the reality Puyi believed in, and they drove his geopolitical decisions.
Right. The rumors were that KMT leaders were accepting bribes from the looted treasure so they wouldn't prosecute the warlord.
Yes. There were widespread allegations that Sun Dayaning bribed KMT officials. The most infamous rumor being that a priceless pearl, which had been placed in Sixi's mouth, was given to Madame Chiang Kai-shek.
And the rumor was she put it on her shoes, right?
That was the story circulating. And for Puyi, true or not, the imagery was deeply painful.
This feels like the exact moment the bridge back to the Chinese Republic was burned permanently.
Completely burned. This painful realization of his absolute powerlessness pushed him entirely into the arms of the Japanese.
Which is exactly where Japanese General Kenji Dohara comes in.
Yes. Dohara was a master of psychological manipulation. He visits Puyi at the Garden of Serenity.
And the contrast here is just incredible. You have this trauma of the grave robbery, and then you have Doihara, who speaks fluent Mandarin, coming in with this smooth flattery.
Dohara bypasses the translators. He sits with Puyi and whispers exactly what this traumatized, isolated man wants to hear.
What does he tell him?
He says, basically, look at what these Republicans did to your ancestors. Go back to Manchuria. It is your ancestral homeland. We will help you conquer it, and you can use it as a base to conquer all of China, just like your ancestors did in the 17th century.
Wow, it's just perfectly tailored to his grief and his ego.
It was exactly the narrative Puyi needed to justify his own survival.
So he is politically isolated, he's emotionally traumatized, and financially he's bleeding out. You might hope, like, maybe he found some comfort at home, but the walls of the Garden of Serenity were hiding a spectacular household collapse.
The domestic situation was an absolute nightmare.
Let's talk about that, because he's basically besieged by his own people, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
The estate was constantly surrounded by relatives, by Manchu bannermen, and by eunuchs, all begging for money.
Because their entire social safety net collapsed with the empire.
Precisely. They had no marketable skills in this new republic, so they came to their former master for survival.
And how does Puyi cope with this immense stress and this intense boredom of having no actual power?
He engages in maniacal shopping.
Retail therapy.
Industrial-scale retail therapy. He buys custom Western clothes, imported radios, expensive pianos. He tries to simulate the feeling of being powerful by commanding shopkeepers instead of armies.
But a pile of radios can't fix a broken marriage. And his marriage to Wanrong, the empress, completely falls apart in Tianjin.
Wanrong's story is deeply tragic. She was a modern, westernized woman. She was highly educated.
And Tianjin had so much to offer.
Exactly. Tianjin was cosmopolitan. She wanted to enjoy the jazz clubs. She wanted to go dancing, play tennis. She wanted to live a modern life.
Imagine that tension. You have Wanrong, who just wants to go out and listen to jazz, and she is completely stifled by a husband who is obsessed with the past and views her as, well, how did he view her?
In his own memoirs, Puyi makes this devastating admission. He wrote, "Frankly, I did not know anything about love. To me, wife and consort were both the slaves and tools of their master."
Slaves and tools.
That is how he saw the human beings closest to him.
Which is just chilling. So Wanrong is trapped in this phantom, obsolete role, married to a man who sees her as a tool for an imaginary restoration.
And to escape that grim reality, she turns to opium.
Oh, man.
What started as occasional use quickly became a severe addiction. It was her only way out of the boredom and the misery of the gilded cage.
And the really wild thing is we know exactly how bad the fighting between them got because of who is listening in.
Right. The surveillance was absolute. Puyi's own butler was a Japanese intelligence spy.
I can't even fathom that. Your life is falling apart, you're screaming at your spouse, and the guy bringing you tea is taking notes for a foreign military.
The spy butler reported everything. He described this incredible scene where Puyi and Wanrong spent hours screaming at each other in the gardens. And Wanrong, pushed to her absolute limit, repeatedly called Puyi a eunuch.
Oh, wow. I mean, the dual meaning there is brutal. Was it a political insult about his powerlessness or a hint at his sexual inadequacy?
Almost certainly both. It was the deepest wound she could possibly inflict on him.
And while Wanrong is self-destructing with opium, his secondary consort, Wenxiu, just takes a totally different path.
She does. In 1931, Wang Xiu simply walks out the door and files for a historic divorce.
An imperial consort suing the emperor for divorce in a modern court.
It shattered centuries of precedent. It was the ultimate public humiliation for Puyi.
Because it proves his authority is totally imaginary.
Exactly. It proved that the laws of the Republic applied to him. His concubine was a citizen with legal rights, and she chose to leave.
Wenxi filing for divorce is just the ultimate symbol of this era. I mean, let's just summarize this massive transformation he underwent.
From 1924 to 1931.
Yeah. He arrived in Tianjin as this naive boy emperor looking for a safe haven, and he spent 7 years being slowly, systematically stripped of everything.
His money squandered on conmen and warlords, his ancestors looted, his dignity erased.
And now even his so-called slaves and tools are walking out the front door. He emerges from Tianjin as a deeply resentful, isolated man who is just perfectly primed for manipulation.
He was completely broken down.
And that leads me to the final thought I want to leave you, the listener, with today. Something to just mull over.
The invisible hands in this story.
Right. Think about the Japanese agents lurking in the background of literally every single scene of this deep dive.
From the very beginning.
From the train ride filled with men in black suits, to the spy butler writing down his marital arguments, to General Doihara whispering in his ear.
They were always there, waiting.
So if you were in his shoes, completely stripped of your identity, robbed of your ancestors' dignity, and abandoned by your country, how long would you hold out?
How much isolation could you take?
Exactly. How long before you finally listen to the one voice whispering that you were destined to be a king again? It's a dark question.
Very dark, but absolutely essential to understanding what happens next.
And that is exactly what we will explore next time. Thanks for joining us for part 4 of this deep dive. We'll see you in part 5.